I'm recording it. If you guys are on and you have your mics on, you just mute. You guys don't need to talk, and then anything going on in the background, you can hear. Will, you want to give me a sound check? Hear you, Will? I don't hear you. No.
How's that?
Yep, much better.
Sound good. Apparently I sounded like crap.
So, for those of you that don't know, Will Heine's joining me. He is a Flash Fire co-patriot, if you will. So, I just want to kind of preface what we're going to do for the next hour or so. Everything for me with training, simulations, tactics, things like that, it's all about different perspectives, right? So my idea for today, you've heard me for the last 4 days. Today's supposed to be quote unquote a makeup, if you will. But just to kind of give you guys a different perspective, that there are more than one ways to do things, more than one ways to give a size up, go about your tactics and things like that. And that's really my goal bringing Will in today. He brings with him, a good amount of experience from, growing up in the volunteer days to career volunteer. So a little bit of everything in terms of when we talk about size ups and things like that. He has taken oral boards in the past. Today is not a silver bullet, a magic pill, or anything like that towards a promotional exam. Okay. It's not meant to focus on promotional exams. That said, obviously the goal is for us to help you in general, both as firemen as well as your professional, promotional career. Okay. But today is not a formal test prep. I don't know what your test will be like. Will is not going to get into what his past tests have been about. And it's a long-winded introduction just because there were questions about what are we actually going to do today. We're not giving any silver bullets. This isn't, if you listen to today for 1 hour, you're going to be good for your oral exam. We're not going to be talking about oral exams. We're just going to be going through size ups now, or size ups, simulations, those types of things. Now, many oral exams do have that component to it. So obviously our goal is to help you in general, but we're not going to be talking specifically about any sort of testing process or the oral exams or anything like that. To stick along those lines, I'm recording, so this will be available if you're at work and you get a call, or you're not on, or you watch later, whatever the case may be, or you want to reference back to it, you certainly can do that. And there, to stay along the lines of just being fair, neutral, and balanced, there's not going to be any questions. So obviously, if I need to clarify something or you didn't hear something, you can ask that question, but we're not going to get into questions of certainly nothing in terms of like, well, what did they do on your exam, that type of stuff. Okay. So Will, do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit, give your background, and then we're not going to do the PowerPoint that you guys have seen the last few days. I'm just going to get right into simulations, and we're just going to bang out a bunch of simulations. So go ahead. Can't hear you again.
There we go. Good morning, everybody. My name's Will Heine. I work for Flash for a couple of years now, and I've apparently going to the academy with a couple of you guys. What's up? Long time no see. But I've like I said, I've been teaching with Flash Fire for a couple of years now. I got my start in the Volley days back home. I was a live-in firefighter in Prince George's County, Maryland for several years, and currently working in Hamden. And I'm assigned to the squad company there. I've been there for a little over 7 years now.
Cool. And you've done simulation stuff. This isn't your first time seeing this stuff, so.
Oh yeah. So the simulation software is come a long way, and we use it extensively, both with Flash Fire. I've used it in the local county school where I'm also an instructor, and it's a great drill and great training setup for sure.
Cool. All right. So can you see my screen now?
Yep.
All right. So this is the one that we've started with every day. And guys, I'm not going to repeat every single one that we've done, but I like starting with this one for a couple of reasons. And I want you to take this away as if you were, doing this in your department or whatever. And, you could ask me to do 360, all that stuff. And I just want the guys that have seen it the other 4 days to see if you do anything different than what we went through, if your thought process is any different than what we went through. And that, so, set up the stage for you. You're on, engine 1 in Stratford. You got 4, or we'll do Hamden since that's where you are. So what are you on the squad of 3 guys, right?
Yeah, driver, officer, and a rider.
And you've got the rescue coming behind you, which is Rhode Island rescue, so a pickup with 2 guys on it.
Yep.
So this is what you got at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. No reports of anything. Just caller across the street reports smoke from a house. You show up and take it away.
All right. So already we have we're pulling up in the afternoon. We're looking at just generically. We're actually not even looking right now. We're listening on the way in. All right. I don't know if you guys have a similar setup with what we have, where we have call taker and dispatch in one room. So I'm listening to the dispatcher. What do they sound like? Who's dispatching makes a difference, especially if you have police and fire all in one room. Do I hear 911 ringing off in the background? Across from, next to, in the area of, on the way in, chances are you're going to a job, right? So we're looking at everything on the way in. Do I know this house? Have I been here before for medical? Is this a frequent flyer address? Have I been into this property for some reason? Is it a known property? Is it a hoarding house? Is it limited access, limited egress for disabled folks? So we're taking that. We're taking our water supply. We're using any of our pre-plan information in our MDT on the way in. We're pulling up to, just like Dan said, what we have right here in front of us. This house is a little set back, nothing crazy. All right. But that's potentially something that could limit a stretch. But I've also, looking at this house right off the bat, yeah, we got some smoke showing. We got some fire showing on the Bravo side above the garage. But don't be the moth to the flame. I'm not going to be the moth to the flame. What I noticed right out the rear is right out the gate is I have potential for a little more house in the rear than I do in the front. So we're going to get as much of a 360 on this as possible, and I'm going to give a good arrival.
Yeah.
All
So
right?
give me your arrival here.
So I like to keep things simple. All right. I'm not a huge proponent. And listen, follow department SOP. All right. But I'm not a huge proponent of getting into, building construction type. Some people are, some jobs are. It's just, I find, especially on my job, and in some of the trainings that I've done, I can harp on a type 5, and I can harp on type 5 lightweight construction, whatever. All right. But I like to call it like I see it. If I see a single family wood frame, or if I see a single family, or if I see a 1-story in the front, 2-story in the rear, single family, I'm going to leave it at that. All right. If you're comfortable with your building construction, if you can call a ranch and get it right, if you can call a cape, but if you start calling a raised ranch a split level, or you start screwing that stuff up, leave it out of your size up. All right. I'm just going to throw that out there. I'm a huge proponent of, single story, single family, whatever. It's 2-story, single family, whatever. It's entirely up to you. We train to our weakest link. There's nothing more upsetting or more frustrating than, people coming on scene and getting the building construction type wrong, or even worse, our guys going, wait, what the heck is that again? All right. So for that reason, I like to just keep it simple with a, that type of relation with building construction. All right. So I have a whole little bit going on here. We have a nice size, single family dwelling.
So give me your first in report, and then get into all your thought process.
I'm on scene with what appears to be a 2-story or split level in the front with potential for more 2-story in the rear. We have smoke showing from the Alpha Bravo side, and fire out the top of the Bravo side above the garage. And that's going to be my, depending upon what you do, if you call your layout or your lay-in instructions, I'm going to call that, we're going to be stretching into the front door. This looks like an easy run. And I'm going to start getting a 360 from here. Oh yeah. Beautiful. Nice. So there you have it. And actually this is, there's a lot more to this, which is great. And this is why I love the simulator. This could be a simple, easy stretch right into the front, down into the garage. I'm still thinking that based off of my 360. I'm looking for obvious rescues. I'm looking for any access and egress issues. The yard doesn't look too cluttered up, so I'm not terribly concerned about any hoarding condition or anything that's going to present me any crazy issues getting into this place. my biggest concern too is, especially as I'm walking around that garage, I'm taking a peek in those windows, not getting too involved, but I want to make sure that, is this just a fire in the room above, or is this something that started in the garage? Do I have a car fire in the garage, et cetera? Not to get too lost in the weeds, but these are things that you definitely got to take a quick peek by, rather than just sprinting around a 360 on this building, right? So, also, are we absolutely sure, looking at what we think pulling up is a single story, or a single occupancy, single family occupancy? Are there rental options here? Is this, is there more going on here with cohabitants and whatnot, occupants and whatnot? So, all right.
So what's your initial?
I'm going in the front door and taking a left. That's my, I'm looking at a good interior tack, coming in the front door, taking a left, heading towards the garage. My rescue company, if they're coming with us, they're going to start on a primary search. If they're not with us, or if it's just the three of us, we're going to do the tried and true, get a stretch in, start getting water on the fire. And, of course, we try and get as much of a search done as possible, but I'm still going traditional here. And again, if I find something that is, a little hokey or a little questioning in that garage, or if I find fire conditions in the garage, maybe we'll do more here as far as trying to knock some of that down and working our way up. But I'm going right in the front and hacking a left, and we're going to try and work into those rooms above that garage.
Okay. And how, I guess, what would you want? So the rescue's doing a search, you're doing a line. What's the next engine doing?
So that is going to be very interesting. So we also need to make sure that you're having whatever your working fire protocol is, right? Whether you give it on your arrival or after your 360, every job's a little different. All right. But make sure you actually, whatever you have for a working fire protocol, that is started. All right. If I have my own water, I'm taking my own water. Otherwise, I'm calling out to whoever our second due is. You're going to have to secure a water supply for us. We have, in certain parts of town, we have a quint showing up. And that could be, if they're getting there the same time as potentially the third due, they might start taking the truck roll versus, an extra 20 seconds of passing the water supply roll onto the third arriving engine. So that gets a little interesting, and that's something to keep in mind as well, especially the further up in town for us. That is a unique thing that we have with the quint being, pretty much almost centered north side of town. But they're going to have to start thinking about your water supply conditions. I'm sorry, your water supply situation. So some places lay in for everything, some places don't. But whatever you do for water supply, make sure you're getting on the radio talking about it, however you need it.
All right, sounds good. Let's go to a different one. Unless there's any questions of clarification side. A couple guys did this one, but not everyone, so I'm going to do this one. So we're going to call this, we'll call this 3 a.m. Someone else called it in though, so you don't know of anyone, the homeowner did not call it in. So you arrive and this is what you're presented with. So again, what are you what's your go-to, or not go-to here, but what are your tactics going to be here?
So right off the bat, 3 o'clock in the morning changes things. Our rescue profile is gonna change, and at least the likelihood of having somebody home is going to change. We have cars in the garage, and again, not keen on the fire real quick, but we obviously have some good fire conditions coming out of that garage area. And we're going to have potentially some access and egress issues for for anybody coming down those stairs at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm still going to get a good 360 as soon as I arrive. But again, on the way in, we're listening. How many calls are we taking? 3 o'clock in the morning might just be one call as opposed to the day when everybody can see a header. But I'm arriving. I got a 2-story single family dwelling. I have fire showing from the Alpha Bravo side, from the area of the garage, and calling the working fire. And we are going to get as much of a good 360 as possible, if we have it.
Yeah, we do.
Oh yeah. You got a real good garage fire. All right. So we have a lot more in the rear. Potentially we're going to call out that we have almost a 3 in the rear. I can't really tell if that's a walk, and that doesn't appear to be a walkout, but it's something to consider. Getting on the radio about, especially if access and egress is going to be an issue, or we have to worry about getting in. The truck has to worry about getting in those windows in the rear to make a rescue. But I'm still going to try and get in right in that front door, make a push into that garage. Some people might go right for the direct attack in the garage, but 3 a.m, I'm going to try and get a line right in that front door and get that line between any occupants and that fire getting into the house potentially, and then again, if I got my rescue with me, my 2-man rescue, they're going to go ahead and get a primary. But of course, our issue is going to be, is anybody in the yard when we get there? Otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, this is an occupied structure until we prove otherwise, especially with the vehicles in the driveway. This is a go. This is a quick go for sure.
So you're doing 1.75 inches into the front door, and then whenever your second due engine gets there, they'll stretch another line over to the garage.
Yeah, have them get over to the garage, especially, that car is there. I'm sure that garage will be a factor. Or, sorry, correction. That car is there by the garage. I'm sure that thing will be going too. You do have fire this volume, so that's not going to help things any. But yeah, our first line's going right in that front door. We're taking another left, and
okay.
Any water supply concerns. Of course, we're going to get on the radio about whether we have our own or whether we dropped on the way in or whatever.
1.75 or 2.5 to the garage.
So I'm with my company in the potential for coming across somebody. I'm going 1.75 inches. If conditions.
No, the second line to the garage.
Oh, second line. There's still not a whole lot of real estate there. I think we can get away with a second 1.75 inches. I mean, if you want to back up with the 2.5 just to be safe, but I mean, not for nothing. I'm coming in with 1.75 inches. I'd hate to compete with a 2.5, but if we need it there, I'm sure by that point it's going to be getting into the house anyway. But if I notice right away that as I start getting water on this thing, I'm not having any effect, then yeah, I'm going to call for a bigger line for sure.
Okay.
Or at least have them start darkening it down from the outside if they're there. I'm sure hopefully that interior door is there. I'm sure it's doing its thing holding, but 3 o'clock in the morning, who knows how long this thing's been burning.
That was we did this with a couple shifts. We didn't do this with all the shifts. One thing that I brought up on something like this is, and I've said this every day, and so I said I wouldn't talk much today, but sorry, you gotta listen to me. I'm ending my 360 by opening that front door, and that may dictate where my line goes. And this, again, is just my take. I have no problem with the first line going the front door automatically. On the same token, if I open up that front door, and to your point, that door between the garage and the kitchen, most likely kitchen, is holding, and there's a light haze inside here and it hasn't breached, then I may go take that first line to the garage and get some water on the fire. Whereas obviously if I open up that front door and it's lights out or the fire's starting to roll into the kitchen, yeah, I got to get that line into the front door, protect my egress so that the guys can get up to the second floor for a search. But again, that's just my my opinion is, and we talked about it a lot this week or last week, was ending our 360 at that front door, and at least whether we're using it or not for entry, at least popping it open and making sure that there's no victims that tried to escape and went down. They have a double keyed lock or something like that, and we're fiddle fucking with the lock and went down right in front of that front door. So that's just another consideration on something like this. So your second line's going there. Yep. Search going up to the second floor. Fine. So pretty straightforward there. Guys, if you have any questions, if we clarify anything, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the next one. All right. So let me pause this share. I don't think I did this one, so we'll do this. Maybe one group did this one, but. All right, so afternoon or whatever, fire in a commercial structure. You get there, the guy comes out and says all the workers are accounted for, and so take it away.
Forgive me for asking, Dan. Is that a roll-up door open for some reason?
It is. This one's closed. There's smoke coming out of this window, and this one's open, and you've got heavy black smoke coming out of it.
Awesome. All right, cool. So right off the bat, we're given arrival. Again, I don't like to get too lost in the weeds on building construction type. All right. I have a single story commercial. I have smoke showing from the alpha side. We're going to go with our work and fire. And then if everybody's outside, I want to talk to the facility manager right quick. What exactly, do they have anything in there that's going to potentially, present a hazmat issue or any crazy flammability issues. What exactly do they do in there? The support facility could literally be anything. So after that, we're going to I'm going to have my nozzle firefighter start working on 2.5 while I get a 360 in place. Being a commercial building with, especially with a good volume of smoke, we're going to go with 2.5 route. I'm going to get as much of a 360 as possible. Looks like there's a little bit of size to this building, but we might not be able to get all the sides, but
You can't.
nothing too crazy on either one of those sides. And then we're going to try and see if we can make some headway with that 2.5. But again, being a commercial building, I'm going to try and get as much information as possible. While the guys are getting a good stretch in, at least to get to that door. Plus that roll-up door, can I get into that roll-up door? Can I look left, look right? Can I visibly see what's burning? That's going to change some things. All right. Is this going to be a quick knockdown, or am I going to have to get, way into this building before I can start figuring out what exactly is going on? And again, the feedback I get from the people involved and what I can see, you're going to have a lot to play with this. As well as conditions at that roll-up door. Is it a lot of black smoke, a lot of heat with that? We're going to open up right there and, we'll start moving some water. Also, water supply concerns, especially a good deep-seated fire in a commercial building. If I don't have my own water source, I'm going to make sure that the other companies are bringing the water supply for sure.
Okay. And then what do you have in like subsequent arriving engines, rescues, truck doing here?
So again, the rescue, they're always going to assume a primary search role. Maybe we're spoiled with that, but being a commercial building as well, we're going to want to be prepared for any forcible entry concerns. The truck's going to try and get some access for ventilation, of course, over the seat of the fire, which in a building of potentially this size could be, super important. And then again, forcible entry concerns. So working up some roll-up doors potentially once good, we have the opportunity to do that once we get a line in place. Any forcible entry concerns with any other parts of the building, support facility, like I said, could be anything. For all we know, that left side of the building could be another occupancy. Is there a firewall in the middle? Is there a divider in the middle? Whatever. Is the fire actually in the other side? If that's the case, is the fire on the other side, and we're just getting a little bit of extension or whatever over here? So we're definitely going to want to get a better look at what's going on inside this building as quickly as possible, in my opinion.
Okay.
So.
Good. I'm just going to keep banging these out, guys.
Nice.
All right. So what are you doing here?
All right. So especially, we're arriving again, two-story single family dwelling. I have fire showing from the office side. We're going to transmit the work and fire. One thing I haven't talked about yet that I always try and do, as a driver, I always tried to pull past unless there was something in the way that was going to block the truck out. Again, we can see as many sides of the building as possible before we even getting out of the truck, out of the rig. But again, my size up, two-story single family dwelling. I have fire showing from the office side. We're going to get off. We're going to get as much of a 360 as possible.
I'm getting there.
No worries. Nice. All right. So can you go back to, there you go. Right. Perfect. So, yeah. So we have a little interesting construction here for sure. As we're doing our walk around, we're going to notice, the 3 in the rear. We're going to definitely want to call that out over the radio. You got a good fire on the second floor in these bedrooms. We're going to go ahead with 1 3/4 right into the front door. My rescue company is going to start getting as much of a primary search as possible without getting too overextended. And we're going to start working from room to room as best as possible. Second in companies, I do have an occupied potential for an occupied structure. It is anyway. I deem anything anyway until we say otherwise. But ventilation is going to be important for the truck. We got the search going with the rescue. We're going to call out any water supply concerns. If my driver can, when he gets water supply set, gets the line going, can he start securing some of those utilities, et cetera, right in the front there? It's an easy grab, easy go. And yeah, that's, there's a lot of stuff here. You got propane in the front, propane in the rear. what exactly, what's going on in there for sure. It looks like we might have some home business stuff. I'm seeing a lot of machines. Maybe it's just construction, who knows, but all stuff to keep an eye on. Definitely looks like it's under renovation. So that's something to keep in the back of our brain. How much of this is open, how much of this is currently, up to code, and, we worry about fire spread in that regard, not to get too lost in the weeds, but this definitely something to pay attention to as we're heading into this joint. Got a playground in the rear too. So potential.
Without a doubt, you could up there, it may not be sheetrocked yet. So this may,
Exactly.
and then, but the family may be living in it while they redo the house. So as you said, a lot going on here. And it basically looks like they took a ranch and added a 2-story addition to the D side of it. So
we even got the pissed off guard dog right in the front row there.
Exactly. One thing you've mentioned a couple times that I think I did, but I will reiterate that I agree, is definitely calling out, from this angle, it just looks like it's going to be 1 and 2 stories. And so calling out that, walkout basement or extra level in the rear, I think is very important. And, remembering that if you're going to enter the rear, what floor you're going to be entering, meaning, hey, I have this is the second floor, and you get to the rear, this isn't the second floor. And I will tell you, I've done that where it was 2 in the front, 3 in the rear, and I was the OV and thought I was doing a great job VESing. And then I VESed the floor below the fire because it was 3 in the rear and I didn't account for that. That was a while ago, but it's always stuck with me that, as you walk around to that rear, just make sure that you're accounting for that. Here you're going to see the smoke, so it's not a big deal, but just make sure that you're accounting for that as you enter or exit. So
you guys, especially on the water, one thing that you're going to run into, something similar to this, is going to be any elevated structures, converted cottages, post Irene, post Sandy, hurricane, homes that were brought up to FEMA standard. I can't remember what it is now. It is 14 feet, but they're essentially elevated, the up on stilts, if you will. You'd be surprised how fast that jams guys up. All this, they're going to start calling the second floor, the third floor, et cetera, just because it's up a little higher. Be prepared for some of that confusion in those structures as well. I like to rattle off as soon as I see that we're headed to an elevated structure. That's what I like to call it on the radio, an elevated structure. Or whatever you guys have. If you don't have anything for that, great. I like elevated structure for me works, but you'll see something similar. Guys, not sure what floor they're coming in on, mismanaging that on the radio pretty frequently on the shore.
We actually talked about that with the raised ranch too, where you could call it a basement and first floor or first floor and second floor. And, just everyone being on the same page, otherwise possibly run into issues there. Right. All right. No, not that.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Yeah, this is especially in the middle of the night, just like we were just talking about. Is this just going to be your run of the mill? Or is this going to be, are you going to pick up, a lot of guys take the easy bait. They might not even see some of that smoke, but perfect. Yeah. So we're going to arrive. You have a single story in the rear, single story in the front, 2-story in the rear, single family dwelling. Got light smoke or smoke showing from the Bravo side. We're going to go with a working fire. We're going to call out any of our water supply concerns, and then we're going to go with the 360. Oh,
Yeah, don't look at the interior. We'll get to that later, but
Raj.
that's
Yeah.
your
So perfect. Again, that's the other benefit of getting as many sides of the building pulled up as possible. You immediately hopefully can key on the 2 in the rear, that walk out in the rear. So this time of day, follow department SOP, but is this going to be one of those cases where I might hit the rear versus maybe I just go in the front door? But we got smoke showing, no fire showing.
what are you doing? Where are you taking your first line?
So, it's obviously an occupied home. Maybe they're home, maybe they're not, but I might, I'm probably still going to head to that front door. We're going to finish that 360 at the front door, but all depends on what I find at the front door. If conditions are manageable at the door, we'll go conventional, go down the stairs. If they're not, if there's anything sketchy about it, we're going to go right to the rear. We'll do a direct attack right into the rear basement walkout. Otherwise, try and cover the rescue while they get a search done. For sure.
So you guys are, I mean, you're very, I don't want to call it traditional, but you're very much front door almost all the time, it seems, as we're going through here.
I think a lot of that has to do with us having that rescue there. Yeah. But like I said, if it looks a little, if it's anything too snotty or anything too crazy at that when we get that front door open, that might change things in that 360. But for what we got going on here.
You have that window up there. So are you calling this a 1-story, 1.5 story, 2-story?
The age-old New England half story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's definitely occupiable space to me, and that might seem a little crazy, especially dealing with capes and whatnot. And I like to laugh and joke about the whole, people don't get up there and call it, go ahead and get me a line to the half division,
right?
Or half division to command, so I like to call it the second story. I mean, it is what it is. We can split hairs after about that 1.5 cape or a 2-story cape, especially with the walkout 2 in the rear. That's a half, in my opinion. I'm sorry, that's a second story all day on the radio and on the fireground for me. If you guys have SOPs or something that says otherwise, but yeah, to me that's a 2-story. That's an occupiable space.
Right.
Especially with this walkout in the rear. So that's the second story for me all day.
Yeah, I mean, I can go either way. I when I hear half story, it just tells me that there's probably voids and knee walls up there. That's really the only thing that's changing for me. But a 2-story could still have voids and knee walls. So I definitely think it doesn't. There's a lot of opinions out there for sure that don't always get addressed. So.
Nice.
All right. So what are we'll call this 4 in the morning.
4 in the morning. Roger that. So we got a lot happening here. Nice. We're giving our arrival. We are on scene with a 2-story single family dwelling. I know we have the basement, but whatever. Guys are going to stretch while I'm getting a 360 in.
What are they stretching and where are they stretching it to?
So we're still going to go with 1 3/4 just because of the building size, but they're going to go right to the garage. This we're going to knock down quick.
Okay.
There's just too much fire volume. Especially if the rescue's with me, when I do my 360, I don't want to get my head too lost in the weeds right now. I still want to get that 360, and that's important. This is a very easy fire to almost moth to the flame it. I want to see the rest of this property.
That's all I got for you. So.
Okay, no worries. There's not a whole lot, all things considered, to what you got in the front. There's not a whole lot going on here. Yeah, we're going to knock as much of that down as we possibly can just because of the sheer volume there and being underneath everything. If my rescue can get in and get a search while we're doing this, call it any fire conditions, we're going to knock this back as quick as we can, and then we're going to try and get right into the rest of this structure.
So 1 3/4 to the garage, not a 2.5. What's your thought process on that?
So we can that's going to depend on a lot, actually, Dan. And we can certainly lead off with a 2.5 here. So while the guys stretch at 2.5 in dark, we've done this a lot, actually, especially having a 3-man engine company. A good volume of fire coming out of a garage like this. You get the 2.5 going, get some water on it. We've even had the rescue on their way by the rig grab the 1 3/4 and stretch it to the door or wherever other access that we have while the driver's hooking up. But water supply is going to have a lot to do with this. In the north end of town, we're waiting for a long time for guys to show up. Granted, we have 1,000-gallon pumper up north, but if that's not the case, I have adequate water supply. We'll go ahead and lead off with a 2.5. Get as much of this darkened out as possible, and then try and follow up with 1 3/4, 4 in the morning. I'm worried especially about getting in there and getting a search done, but also making sure about where is this going.
Mm-hmm.
You can certainly make a case for both ways.
I mean, I think fire load it leads me towards a 2.5. However, efficiency leads me towards 1.75 inch, meaning I can knock this with the 1.75 inch
Yeah.
and then just shut it down and bring it in the front door versus having to stretch a whole second line or whatever. So.
Yeah. That's something that we unfortunately with our staffing model, our rescue is also our paramedic unit. They don't ride in a whole bunch, but if they are at the hospital, we're gonna have to. It's gonna change our dynamic a lot. And again, our water's the top third of our town really isn't so much hydranted. So we're gonna be pulled a couple different ways. So this is definitely.
So talk to me about a search at 4 a.m. Obviously, you know what VES is. When does that come into play for you at something like this? Or are you just going conventionally in the front door and up the stairs and so on and so forth?
So if I don't have any access issues, especially in this construction, home run, I can get in the stairs fine. But the other benefit to this, really the window layout and the construction type here is with one ladder, a simple roof ladder, I can get this whole roof and get in some of those windows. I can VES the heck out of this pretty quickly. 4 a.m, if they're not outside or they're not alerted to the fire, we either have a door holding really well or we got something serious going on inside. You know what I mean? So
that's 4 a.m. No one meets you. 4 a.m. and the father's out here saying my kid's trapped in the bedroom.
We're gonna hit that bedroom like a ton of bricks.
You're gonna say, "Go bring me to that bedroom and VES."
And the time I'm hitting that with a roof ladder. Even I'm getting into that. I can walk that pitch no problem. I'm getting into that window, especially if he's telling me where the actual bedroom is, and we're gonna hit that room like a ton of bricks. Yeah.
Does that change where your first line is going or no?
No, there's just too much. There's too much. We're far enough away, unless there's some obvious involvement into this house. I mean, there's a good volume of fire going on. We're going to do a lot for everybody darkening this down while the search is going on. Now again, that might change. That's definitely going to change if I look into those windows and I start seeing a glow in those windows or something rolling across in those windows, or the smoke is crazy turbulent enough to say, hey, there's we obviously have extension into the living portion of this home. Yeah, that's going to change. So that's going to change some things. But
so if you open this front door and you saw some fire in here, you would tell them, don't even bother with this, just bring it to the front door and protect us.
Yeah. Or a quick hit, get into the whatever, and then get into the door. I mean, it's going to be sporty,
Yeah. No,
there's not happening at that point,
This is just the way I like to do it is we look at something and then throw out a lot of different scenarios from it,
Yeah.
All right, so this is kind of your far view, right? As you're entering the parking lot. Now you're getting a little bit closer, and this is what you have.
Okay. All right. Something like this I like dropping on the way in. But this is going to present some interesting stuff for us. So I'm on the scene. I have a single story strip mall. I have smoke showing from the alpha side. One of the things that these have are cut through tunnels, that you can kind of run through and maybe get a quick poke at the rear just to see what you have. Otherwise, you're not going to get much of a 360 at all. So on the way into this thing, I'm going to try and get as many sides of this as possible. But the strip mall this size.
Yeah, there's no cut throughs here. So
yeah, there's nothing. Awesome. Great. So we got a single story commercial building, the smoke showing. Pool plus makes it interesting, chlorines, pool chemicals, everything. Do I have is it before business hours? Is it after business hours? Does anybody meet me out front? So this is a 2.5 all day. Get into this as much as possible. I might take a peek into the windows while the guys are getting a stretch to the front, masking up just to see, exposure wise and extension wise, what I have going left and right, just trying to get as much of a picture as possible. If that front door is open, the store is probably occupied, obviously, especially if it's during business hours. So we're going to bring that 2.5 and I'm going to take a good look at what we have at the rear, I'm sorry, correction, a good look at the front door, especially not being able to see much of the rear, if anything at all. So
So how are you gonna get a 360 done here? You're not doing it, I agree
So
with
I'm not doing it, but one of the things that we can certainly do, especially if the truck is there quick, get a guy up doing his thing on the roof and have him give us a report from the rear.
you.
It's one thing my job tries to do, especially multifamily or commercial. If they can't hit 360 and get a look at the rear, the guys up on the roof can at least take a peek over the backside and say what they have.
And what else would they, so they do that, what else would they be doing on the roof at that point?
They're looking for obviously any vertical ventilation possibilities up there, between getting a hole or going through any HVAC stuff that's in place, or any scuppers, or any hatches, or anything they can do to get that opened up. I think it's going to be an advantage, especially with this type of occupancy and some of the materials that could be involved.
And, when we talk about fire travel and private dwellings, I think we're all pretty in tune. What are we looking at? What's your, what's your concern with fire travel here?
So I'm looking at upward lateral spread. I'm worried about this getting up and then going across. This is something that you see this is actually the past few years, especially along the shore. We've seen a lot of these catching fire, and it's just, we get a fire in one occupancy, gets up into the spaces above, and it just spreads left, spreads right. So, we're going to want to try and get a hole, have the truck get a hole, try and keep this from, spreading laterally as best as possible.
And the one thing I'll say, a huge hazard here for the companies coming in the front door is just not knowing what's above you. And when I say that, I mean, all right, the fire started in the rear, it's pushing out some black smoke from the front here, but making sure, especially any commercial structure, particularly, coming into the front door, immediately jumping left or right and putting a hole in the ceiling above you. And that could be a cock loft, it could be a drop ceiling, it could be multiple ceilings, but just making sure that it's not freely burning above you. And that's in a I don't know if that's fair to say, but that's definitely a factor in the Charleston, 9 guys that died was kind of, I don't want to say moth to a flame, that's not the right term, but going for the fire in the rear when there was fire also burning above them. And so that's especially concerning when we get into a commercial type structure like this, is making sure that fire is not burning freely overhead, because a lot of times these fires do start in the rear. That's where the electric is, that's where the combustibles are, near the electric meter, boiler, whatever the case may be. A lot of times that's in the rear. And so it'll start those combustibles, get up into the ceiling, get up into the drop ceiling, depending on the construction, and then work its way up front without showing itself, until the end. So, all right. What kind of construction do you think this is? I think that's a reasonable question. What do you think? What kind of construction do you think this is? Well, it's hard to tell. These aren't all,
there's a lot by me, especially that are a lot more are, getting built out of, all lightweight construction now out by me.
This one's pretty old. It's in Monroe, so I know it's pretty old. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's your more typical ordinary construction. But when we talk about new construction too, we just have to be careful, because we're all some of us are gonna feel old now, but like new construction isn't that new anymore. And when we say like, oh, truss construction is new construction, I mean, truss has been around for 30, 40 years now. So it's not really new anymore. And there's a lot of this I could consider a taxpayer style. It's more of a strip mall. It's not quite a taxpayer, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's steel bar joist up there, or wood joist. It could go either way. And so that just becomes such a hazard, because it's tough to look from here. And so this is a great point. A couple of things I'll touch on here. That roof. So, it's got that big parapet in the front. I will give you the rear now just so you can see. It's no parapet in the rear, right? And so I think we do want to get a company to the rear at some point. That would be a go-to for me. It's not gonna be the first do, it's not gonna be the second do, probably not gonna be a third do, but someone needs to get to the rear. Just from the fact, if there's fire in the rear, we're pushing in with a 2.5 in the front, get that door open so that we can vent the rear. But so let me ask you, what are a couple of ways? Well, all right, I'm not doing a question and answer, but here's what I'm doing. If I'm the safety officer's probably listening. If I'm the safety officer, how can I determine what type of construction this is? I'm not going into this pool store in zero visibility and being able to determine what type of construction this is. But when I look at this, what can I do? Well, the whole strip's not involved. So I can come into whatever store I can get into that doesn't have a smoke condition yet, pull a ceiling or two in there, get up in the, whatever the case may be, in order to get eyes on what type of construction I have there. Most of the time, we know what our condos are, but you know what? If you have a condo complex, maybe your mutual aid, it's a large condo complex, you can go to an adjoining building and take a look, and it's gonna be a similar layout, similar materials, similar construction. So for me, that might be what I do, you know, later on. Maybe I'm the RIT company. It doesn't have to be a safety officer. Maybe the RIT does that. Hey, let's go see what type of construction's over here. And so I think that's something that, you know, you're certainly not doing that first due. I'm not trying to imply that I would. But certainly later arriving, you can get into an adjoining that's not involved yet and take a peek at what kind of construction there is.
I agree. Definitely at some point, reasonably quick, somebody's got to get a look in the rear. You'd hate to go through all this just to find out it's a trash compactor in the rear. You know what I mean?
So first do 2.5.
Yeah, yeah.
What is your second line and where is it going?
So, I mean, the second line is going to follow me in. There's just, you know, limited access, whatever. If getting into the rear, especially in this property, it's going to be very time consuming, but, and especially with the potential for some of the fire load and some of the stuff inside of this store, you know, we're going to want to have that. And like I said, it's all going to be based off of what we find. You know,
in general, just based on what you see, if someone says, where's your second line going? Where's it going?
Follow me. It's going to be a traditional backup line. Follow me in. Unless I have serious exposure issues or something crazy going on, that's going to be following us right in traditionally.
And I think that's something I tried to touch on, is that we always get wrapped up into the second line, you know, going above or going to exposure, but the true reason for the second line is to back up the first line.
Everybody calls it the backup line. Oh, I don't know where I'm going to take the backup line. Well, it's a backup line.
Yeah. And there are always going to be exceptions. We talk basement fires, garage fires, things like that. But when in doubt, back up the first line. And again, coming down to communication. Hey, engine 2 to engine 1, how are you making out? Oh, we're good. We got the majority of the fire knocked down. Okay, well now maybe I can go into an exposure. Engine 2 to engine 1, how you making out? Oh, there's a lot of fire, we're having trouble. All right, guys, let's back them up. And so again, it just comes down to communication. All right. The other thing, this one doesn't have it, but just be mindful of these types of strip malls with basements and stuff. Some of them are built on grade, so same hazards, making sure you get a view of the rear, and you know, if there's a basement to them at all.
The new thing on the shore especially is if there's line of sight to the ocean, you're seeing these popping up all up and down the 95 corridor along the water with apartments above. They can make a lot of money with an ocean view, you know. So we're seeing a lot of these coming up lightweight with an ocean view.
Oh. All right, so I did this with a couple groups, but I think this is a good one. This is the original building that we did, but a different scenario. So
awesome. Yeah. So anyway, we're on scene. You know, you have your oh wow. Hold on, I'm fidgeting my brightness again. All right, yeah. So we're giving an arrival on scene. I see a we'll say single story in the front, working around, if I'm not mistaken, and 2-story in the rear. We're gonna get guys stretching. Actually, I'm gonna have them hang by the pump for a second for this while I get my 360 in, especially the size of this building. Dan, can I get the 360 going? We're obviously transmitting our working fire. Yeah, there we go. All right.
Yeah, I'll give you the rear view.
Yeah, give me that rear again. Sorry, that was so it looks like you got a fire going in the porch, getting up and in, and then you got fire out the Bravo Charlie side window there. We're gonna stretch around. This is one where is that coming out of a window on that side as well?
Coming out everywhere.
It's coming out everywhere, yeah. So we're gonna want to darken some of this down, you know, and get in ASAP. You know, I think especially working on that walkout in the rear, which we again would make sure we broadcasted. You know, there's just the fire volume here. You're going to want to darken some of this down. And, this is going to be especially a manpower strapping incident, at least initially,
So what are you stretching to the rear?
I'm stretching to the rear. I'm going to honestly,
What
something
size?
like I'm thinking we can still get away with 1.75 inches here.
Okay.
It's just because of the crew that I'm going to have to potentially deal with, the crew size.
Okay.
Because we're going to have to do some moving here. We're going to have to stay as mobile as possible.
Okay.
I'm going to knock this down outside quick. If we can even get in and start knocking back some of this in the back room right here, great. Second line for sure is going to the floor above, and working that up. The rescue is going to have to really pay attention as to where they're operating, getting as much of a primary as possible. But I think this is just direct attack, knocking this back in the rear, getting in as much as possible. Especially it's all on mostly this side of the house, this one side of the house I'm sorry, Delta Charlie side of the house.
You definitely given a different perspective than we talked about, which is great. I think most of the time we were all coming to the rear. I think very few said they were going to initially stretch into the front door. But what you said that I kind of like, I'm not, again, a lot of different ways to do it, but the 1.75 inches to the rear, knock it down and then enter that ground level in the rear, and then have your second line coming in the front door up to the upper level. That's not something that was brought up. And I think that that's a very viable option. So
No,
again, I think
I'm also relying on companies being able to get there, in a reasonable amount of time. If this is up north, or if this isn't a part of town where, you're waiting a while, that's going to be, time to be an athlete, I guess, you know what I mean? But it is, there's, for the property size, you sure got a lot going on here, and you're going to be hustling, that's for sure.
And the other item we talked about was just the hazards of the raised ranch.
Yeah.
Almost never having doors at the top or bottom of the stairs. So, you really have no isolation whatsoever involved there.
Yeah. The thing about when I say 1.75 inches too, like I'm not just like, screw it, let's hope this works. You know what I mean? If at any time this isn't starting to work, or I notice that I'm just having a heck of a time knocking this back, that's something I have to stay on my toes with and be adaptable to. Especially, it's unfortunately one of those trade-offs. In my opinion, in the lower staffing environment, I don't want to say low staffing. I came from East Haven beforehand, and we were driver rider. It doesn't get much lower other than driver only, so we still have two guys moving. I'm obviously gonna have to be with this much line moving, I'm gonna have to assist on the line and getting that around without getting too lost in the weeds and not losing too much situational awareness. But I think we're definitely gonna have an interesting go at this one for sure.
Yeah. All right, we'll do one more and then we'll wrap it up. This is a good one. All right, so again, reporting a garage. You're actually coming up from this way. And this is what you have. So that's a 2-bay garage on the lower level there. So
Okay. We're on scene with a 2-story single-family dwelling. We have fire showing from the Bravo side. We're going to call the working fire, call it any water supply concerns. I'm going to get a 360 while the guys start stretching.
oh, no, yeah, that's what you got. So
Anything in the rear?
no, I don't
No.
have one, but that's
All right. Give me that garage again if you don't mind.
this.
No, I'm sorry. Other one. All right. Just if anyway, if there was a possibility of
All
3 in the
three.
rear, we're going to
There
call
you
that out. Yeah, there we go. Sweet. You got way too good of a fire volume here to ignore. This is definitely something where I would stretch that 2.5 right to that garage, knock the siding down, knock the garage down. And again, my job is really good with, if we're doing that, the driver or the rescue will help get 1.75 inches to the front door if we have to maneuver around or cut something off. We're just used to doing that. with the way our company and our staffing level is, but they got way too much fire volume on that Bravo side to ignore, especially coming out of that garage. That's a 2.5. It's a quick hit all day with that, breaking the sides. My biggest concern, and it looks like, especially the smoke coming out of the eaves in the front, is that we're losing that. We have got that auto exposure up to the floor above. So we're going to try and knock as much of this as possible. And then, of course, just like I said with the previous job, we're going to want to get in that front door, especially with that backup line, get up and get in there and start knocking any of that fire down in that upstairs living room, especially.
So where's that first line? Sorry,
First,
where's that second line going in the front door?
front door and up to the left.
Up, okay.
Up front door up to the left. We obviously have some good auto exposure. I mean, it's looking at that smoke in the eave line, it's definitely working its way up, and we're even going to have to keep an eye on the attic if it's not there already.
Right.
This is definitely a great vertical ventilation candidate, safe to do so. As a matter of fact, I'd expect it right over that Bravo side, right in the peak. In we're going to try and get as much of a primary as possible, especially if there's nobody in the yard or making themselves known. We got 2 cars in the driveway. But
one thing the guys to pick out again, and this is for private dwellings, is checking where that front door is in relation to the windows, right? So although this is a fancy looking 2-story, what is it? It's a
split.
So just that's a good, if you didn't know, I'm sure many of you did, that's a good telltale sign that I open up that door. I don't know which way the stairs are going, but I know there's half a flight up and half a flight down. Man, this is a tough one because I'm with you, the 2.5 to the garage. I don't know if my inch 3/4 into the front door is not going down the stairs versus up.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I'm concerned if it gets into the house and now I've brought a line up top, the fire is going to burn up behind me up the stairs. So
this is certainly a 3-liner and a single family. That's for
and
sure.
I think that's the important thing, is looking at some of these and realizing this is not one line and a backup line fire. That we need 3 lines, and that's I think I mentioned in one day, that's why these when you have the porches going in the rear in a lot of these cities, their first line goes to the rear because they're not going to get 3 lines stretched in 2 minutes, and so they're going to need a line on every floor, but initially they just need to get some fire knocked down in the rear. So kind of a similar scenario here, in the sense that unless we can get 2 lines into operation immediately, and even then probably 3 lines, because you're going to need 1 up in the attic, this is definitely something you got to get some fire knocked down on first. So. All right, very good. All right, so I think we'll wrap it up. Does anybody have any questions that we can answer, clarification on anything? If not, I'll just summarize that, hopefully this helps you guys a little bit. There are resources out there, so if you're looking for tutoring and stuff like that, it's out there, go find it. Hopefully you guys are working hard and you'll do well. Certainly I've been there. It's not a fun time. So, but hopefully it'll be worth it for you guys. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. I'm happy to answer questions. Will, anything to wrap up on your end?
Yeah. So listen, wrapping up, you guys may have noticed that in each situation, I give a size up, I give an arrival, I transmit the work and fire. My job specifically is a little unique in that the first arriving officer, I don't want to say doesn't establish command. The state 7313 series of statutes obviously requires the first member of any fire department will establish command, blah, blah, blah. But we are changing a lot of stuff. But keep in mind, follow your own SOPs. But if you're going to be, the more that you get reps of some of this stuff, verbalize whether you're going to take a tactical command or your established command. Obviously, follow your SOPs. But that's one thing that you notice I didn't say a lot, just because at work that we're not expected to. That is something that keep in mind at the state level, the national level, that you're going to be expected to at least acknowledge that. The combative command or tactical command, depending upon where you are on the East Coast. But it is definitely something to not ignore. That is definitely something you will have to have verbalized and have experience stating, etc., if that makes sense. It doesn't matter whether your job has you do it or not. That's definitely something to keep in mind.
All right, guys, thank you very much. And good luck to those taking the test, and we'll see you guys soon, hopefully. Thank you. Thanks, Will.